Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 138 of Speaking from the Heart. Today we have Navi Bliss as our guest, and Navi is the demystifier of personal relationships, cultivator of confidence, certified love and relationship coach, certified inspirational speaker, and host of the Blissful Love podcast. She is a contributing author in two #1 best-selling books. One is called Our Yellow Brick Road, and the other is called Healing and Growth. Growing up with a mother who was physically and emotionally abusive left Navi with a tattered sense of self and low self-esteem. This sent her on a path of a horrible, toxic, and abusive set of relationships until she reached her breaking point in 2016 when she walked away from another abusive relationship. After going on a healing journey, Navi was able to flip the script on her own life and is now determined to help others to do the same. Navi's mission is to help people fall head over heels in love with themselves so they can effortlessly attract the life and love of their dreams. Navi uses her stories of overcoming childhood abuse and neglect to inspire others that anything is possible. The wholesome aspect of this episode comes from the fact that we have all kinds of ways in which we can go through life loving one another. But if we keep on repeating the same havoc, the same terrible types of relationships, even as my guest's bio even points out, we're never going to be able to overcome those stigmas, those repeating patterns that always happen in our lives. She talks about 4 pillars, which we'll talk about at the end of the episode, but it's something that I find that we open ourselves up to the unlimited potential because we're able to figure out inside of ourselves that we need to work through difficult situations, overcome obstacles, and hold ourselves accountable that we have that ability, that vision to go to the next level. Never say it's impossible, because even if you repeat it over and over again, even if you think that you find yourself insane, especially going through all these different types of situations, just know that you will get to the other side, especially like my guest has today. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Navi Bliss. Navi, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
I'm really excited to be here and share my story.
I am too. I'm super excited about not only the things that we're going to talk about today, but you have an interesting business in itself that I am looking forward to hearing about. But I let the audience know a little bit about your background, Navi, but I really am curious to start out with this first question. Why? Oh, why would nobody love you? Because that just seems so sad. And I think that you are a very lovely lady. And I'm literally saying that because I'm looking at you. And I feel that for many people, sometimes finding someone else is very tough, but you do your work around that sort of playing field. So I'm wondering if you could tell a little bit more of your expanded story and also share a little bit about why you decided to help others.
Absolutely. So my own journey started actually, I would say, in childhood because I grew up in a home with a mother who is physically and emotionally abusive towards me. And so my entire life, all I remember is wanting to be loved and wanting validation because I did not receive that at all. All I received was everything negative you can imagine. And so I just never developed that self-worth and that self-esteem. And that, of course, pushed me to seek it anywhere I could outside of myself. And then I got married when I was very young. And when I met my ex-husband, I thought, okay, this is it. Someone chose me. Someone loves me. Now everything that my mom said about me is wrong. And now I'm validated. And then he had a child with somebody else while we were married. And of course, that came crashing down. And that's what happens when you outsource your worth to other people. It can just come crashing down around you. And so if you say I had a negative self-esteem of negative 100 before I started, it doubled. So I was at least negative 200 after that happened. And of course, that sent me on an even worse path of just seeking love anywhere that I could. And I ended up into domestic violence relationships back to back. And after I got out of the second one, because that is actually very dangerous when you're actually trying to leave a domestic violence relationship. And when I got out of that, that was a grace. And I realized, okay, this can never, ever happen to me again, because if it does, I don't even know if I'm going to survive it. So I have to figure this out. I have to figure out what is going on, why I keep ending up in these situations. And I realized that what had happened to me in the past wasn't my fault, but I was an adult now, and I was deciding what I was allowing into my life. And I was allowing people into my life that were treating me very, very poorly. And that set me on a healing journey myself. It included therapy, it included coaching. And through that, I actually learned that all of this love that I'd been seeking outside of me, I actually had the capacity to give it to myself, that it was possible for me to self-validate and for me to feel good and just wake up every day and feel good. And then through that, I actually started to attract differently because I was radiating something different. I was putting something out there, and I found my passion and purpose because I know that there are so many other people that are also struggling with their self-worth and confidence, and as a result are in really, really terrible relationships in their life. And I'm passionate about helping people to step into their worth, to step into their magnetism so that they can attract everything that they want in their life effortlessly, because attraction is the same, whether you want to attract your soulmate or whether you want to attract your soulmate client in your business, and it all starts with you. So that is the beauty of the work that I do. It's not dependent on anyone else. It's dependent on you, and you change and your whole world is going to change.
You literally just told my story of how I got to this point, because I realized that I wasn't loving myself for the longest time. And I also have heard from many people that have seen me grown even since I opened this business, even started this podcast. Josh, you're really doing your calling. You're doing amazing things. Seems like you're loving yourself. And I'm like, 1000% correct. That is exactly the truth. What was the switch for you? Because you said something about going through 2 domestic violence relationships. So first off, I'm glad that you made it through those relationships, because those can be very seriously dangerous. Like you said, I have had guests on the show that have shared that sort of past experience and how they've grown from it. So I'm glad that you're here to be able to share your story. And I know that for many people, it can be very tough to do so. So for you to be this courageous to be able to do that, I just want to give you kudos for sure. But how do you help people if they are going through this process of just not loving themselves, or they're not loving what they're doing in life? Is there something that you have found to be really helpful? You said something about magnetism, and I'm curious if there's a connection with that.
Yeah, so I have a system that I created, and the foundation of that system is 4 pillars of confidence. And I love to start with these 4 pillars because these are things that are really great for someone that is actually coming out of trauma and they're not ready to do affirmations or to do those types of things, right? So my 4 pillars, the first one is to live your passions, because you cannot be confident, you cannot feel good about yourself if you're not living your passions. Because if you're bored with your life, that's going to radiate out as boredom. So maybe you're stuck in a job that you have to do because you have bills to pay, right? And you're not passionate about it, which is absolutely okay. But you have to be able to integrate your passions into your life, because imagine you're out on a date with somebody or you're meeting up with friends and they ask you, how's your week? Well, I went to work and then I came home and I watched TV and I went to bed. That's not going to radiate confidence. You're not going to feel good about sharing that with other people. Other people aren't going to be interested in you. That is not magnetizing. But if you're living your passions and several times a week, you're doing activities that you're passionate about, and it could be anything. Maybe you're playing a sport. Maybe you're taking a dance class. It could be knitting. It could be joining a video game group. It actually doesn't matter what your passions are. One, you're starting to live a life that you feel excited about. And when you talk about that, whatever it is, even if the other person isn't interested in that, but you're talking about it from a place of enthusiasm, you become more magnetic. You become more interesting to the other person that's now listening to you. also you're going to find your community that you gel with when you're doing these activities that you love. And in dating, also, you can't play hard to get. You have to be hard to get. Now, if you have a very full life full of activities that you're loving, you are going to be hard to get because someone can't book you at the last minute because you have an athletic practice that you have to go to, or you have something else that you're doing and you're already booked in, and someone has to find time and plan ahead and do all of these things with you, right? And my second pillar of confidence is to live your values. One of the ways that I define confidence and worth is to be at peace within yourself. So there's parts of you that aren't fighting, because you can't be confident when you're not in full alignment. And this happens when you're not living your values. So when I say this, most of the time people are like, of course I'm living my values. But a lot of times people have values that are in conflict with other values that they hold. One example could be you value financial success, and then you also value ease and fun and freedom. And in your pursuit of financial success, you have come up with the idea that you're going to achieve that through extreme hustle. There's no fun, freedom, and ease in your life. These values are in conflict. So either you have to redefine what success means to you, and perhaps it's going to be balance, perhaps it's going to be adding different things to your life. Or if you really love the hustle, some people do, right? That I'm not here to tell you what your values should be. Maybe you let go of the other values because they're not as important to you, so you're not in conflict. Another example of this could be you value thinness, but you are not thin. With this, you are not going to value yourself or feel good about yourself if you're valuing thinness. Now, you can question this and you can think about it. Is it really thinness? Is this something that is super important to you? Or is this something that you've taken in because society has told you this? Could you change it to health? Because valuing health is very different than valuing thinness, right? And you can be doing things to take care of your health without being at your optimum health, and you can be living within your values, and you can start to feel better about yourself. So find the areas of your life where your values are in conflict so you can alleviate that and come into alignment. My next one is to cultivate self-trust. And cultivating self-trust is really important because you cannot love someone you don't trust, and that includes yourself. And when you don't trust yourself, it's also going to make you a very prickly person because you won't be able to set boundaries with other people. And where people have issues with self-trust is they start making these big promises to themselves and then they break them every single day. An example could be, I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 5 a.m. and I'm going to work out for 2 hours before I go to work. And then tomorrow comes, snooze, snooze, snooze. It doesn't happen. You feel like garbage. You do the same thing the next day. You trust yourself even less. You start to believe in yourself even less. And oftentimes you're setting these big lofty goals for yourself because you're very unhappy where you are right now and you want 180 change in your life overnight. Your life doesn't change. It doesn't do a 180. Change is not like that. It's incremental. It's always incremental, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these promises that you're making and breaking, they're breaking this trust you have in yourself. They're making you feel worse and worse. So a lot of times it's just distilling it down to something smaller. Could you just say, I'm going to wake up 5 minutes earlier and I'm going to do 10 push-ups? And then when you actually do that, you have this sense of pride and accomplishment. If you do 10 push-ups every day for a week, are you going to look different? Is your life going to change? No, but you're going to start to build this sense of pride and accomplishment and trust within yourself. And that trust is going to take you farther and allow you to be able to accomplish more and more. Now, the exercise is just one example. Maybe you excel at that, but everybody has areas in their life typically where they are breaking promises to themselves and they're not cultivating self-trust. So that's something that you want to work on. And my last one is to practice loving kindness to yourself. There's 4 areas where you have to do this. You have to do something for your spiritual well-being every single day. You have to do something for your mental well-being every single day. You have to do something for your physical well-being every single day, and you have to do something for your aesthetic well-being every single day. And all of these areas matter. You have to put practices in place because self-worth isn't one of those things that you just do it once. I've built my self-worth. Now I'm good. You have to have practices in place to keep feeling good. And all of these areas of your life matter, and they don't have to be big things, right? So for your spiritual well-being, if you practice a religion, you could do some sort of activity related to that. If you don't, You could go to a park and hug a tree, right? Just connect to something bigger than yourself, right? Take a few moments every single day. For your physical health, you could just wake up every day and say, I'm going to drink a glass of water, just one glass of water, right? Now you're showing yourself that your physical well-being matters, right? Then for your mental health, you could do a 2-minute meditation. You could say an affirmation. It could be any variety of things, but that you incorporate into your day. And then the last one is the aesthetic, which also matters. And I think people had this experience during the COVID lockdown. I think most people had a number of days where they didn't shower. They wore the same stinky clothes.
Guilty as charged.
And they felt like garbage because if you're showing up in the world like that, you are not going to feel good about yourself. Now, this doesn't mean you have to be full glam every single day, but you have to get up every single day and take a certain amount of pride in your appearance, like shower, clean clothes, like the basic stuff where you went to the grocery store and you ran into your neighbor. You're not going to be embarrassed or want to run away. You feel comfortable, right? Because all of these things are important if you want to start to feel comfortable in your own skin every single day. And then there's a big bonus that happens when you do all of these things. When we put our time and attention towards something, we naturally start to care about it. And I think most people have had an experience where perhaps it was like a celebrity or an athlete, like somebody that they had an obsession over. Maybe you still do, right? You have this person who you idolize and love. And part of what makes them so special is the time that you're putting towards them compared to everybody else, right? And if people don't believe me, an exercise I have them do is go to the park and find a random insect and stare at that insect for an hour, like an ant or spider or something. And then see how you feel after an hour if someone's about to step on your ant or to squash your spider. You're going to feel some sort of way and you wouldn't even have noticed this insect before. And it's because you just poured your energy into it for an hour. Now, just imagine you're practicing these 4 pillars and you start to pour this energy into yourself. That natural confidence and that magnetism is going to start to build up.
Wow. That was a lot to share with those 4 pillars. But I think those 4 pillars have so much that you have explained that I think for my listeners, they will certainly be able to gain a lot out of. And I think that for me, especially when it comes to love and dating, which some of my friends listening to this, they know that I have sucked so bad with doing that. And I think part of it too is because not only were you saying some of the things that I was having trouble with, one of the biggest things is self-trust and actually practice love and kindness. Because when I think about all the experiences I've had, those things have been really the worst. And that's because not only was I not given a great role model, which I hate to say it, but my parents weren't great role models when it comes to that. Sorry, mom and dad, but it's the truth. But the other thing is that I felt like I had so much stigma to live up to. And you mentioned something on your website that kind of struck me too, is that I see all these other people. And as I've gotten older, they got married, they've had kids. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So I know I have some listeners around the world that have that sort of issue. What do you say to somebody that is looking around and seeing all this quote unquote success with dating as opposed to worrying about yourself? Is there any advice you would give?
Yeah, so there's a couple of elements to this. So just because people are entering into relationships and you're seeing everybody around you do this, not all of those people are entering into happy, healthy, harmonious relationships. Even in my own social media feed, you don't know the amount of times that I've seen someone post the happiest couple pic with these long notes to each other. And then a week later, they're announcing their divorce, right? So you don't actually know what's happening in someone else's life. So judging yourself based on that isn't going to be helpful. But the other thing is to understand how attraction works and how our brains work. So our brains are survivalistic. So they're working for our survival. They are not working for our success because they have not changed much since caveman time. So you are attracted to what is familiar to you, not as what is best for you. And how this happens is when we think in terms of survival. So imagine back in caveman times, there's this path you're going down to go and hunt for food, and there's a bear. There's a bear on that path, but it's a small one and you outran it. And then there's like 15 other paths. but you have no idea what's on those paths. Are there bigger bears that can kill you? Are there other obstacles that you're not going to make it through? And there could also be no obstacles. There could be nothing else. But what your brain knows is that you can go down that same path and you can survive. So your brain wants you to survive. So it's going to keep directing you back towards that same path so that you survive. And this is what happens in relationships, because a lot of people that struggle with relationships, they keep dating the same person over and over again in a different body. And it is because it is the pattern that they were wired to because of trauma that they experienced in their life, like chaos that they grew up with. And you grew up in a chaotic home. It doesn't even have to be abusive, but let's just say your parents had a lot of conflict with each other. What feels comfortable to you is actually chaos because you know that you can survive that. So when someone shows up in your life that is presenting differently than chaos, that is going to feel unnatural to your nervous system, even though it's what you want, right? So you have to become aware of that and then learn to train your nervous system to become comfortable with what you actually want rather than what you've experienced.
Yeah. And it's almost like getting on a bicycle and learning how to ride for the first time. And then once you know how to ride, then you know that's muscle memory. So like 30 years down the road, you'll be able to get back on a bike. No problem. It's the same sort of habit. You've already learned how to deal with it. But it's funny because I have not really done a good job breaking those things down. That is one thing that I still have yet to work on. And I'm very vulnerable on my show, Navi, as you can imagine, already hearing some of the things I said, because it's the truth. I know I need to work on a lot of things. I'm not a perfect coach. I know that you're not a perfect coach. If there was such a thing as a perfect coach, I want to meet them. I really do.
Well, I actually had a mentor tell me this once, that when you actually decide to become a coach, that you actually open your life up to more obstacles because you cannot help people through things that you haven't worked through yourself. And the more things that you work through, the greater capacity that you have to help other people.
I had a coach when I started out. His name is Gary. And Gary, if you're listening to this, I love you, man. Thanks so much for helping me get my start. But Gary would also say the same things. He's like, dude, you're going to find out and figure out that you got to work through all these things. And you're going to grow so much stronger and so much better than you are right now, even opening this. And I'm like thinking in the back of my head, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Well, no, the bridge is already there and you're walking over it. And that's just what it is that you kind of learn about how to do these things. And I think that's so true about the dating world, is that sometimes you just have to take a big step forward. But I want to just step back from dating for a second, because you also deal with entrepreneurs in that sense, in that realm too. If we were to take the same conversation and we would say to somebody, find your passion, this is what you should be doing, how do you help them with that?
When it comes to your passion is a thing that you are called to do. You are moved to do it. You're not doing it because of money. It's because you have to do it, right? And a lot of times where entrepreneurs get stuck is they start to believe that they need another course, they need another this, they need another that before they can be successful. But here's the thing. Whatever you're being called to, it's because you already have the capacity to help someone. And it's the thought that you have to have all the answers and your life has to be perfect. Your life is never going to be perfect, right? And you don't have to have all of the answers. And most people don't have the same coach that takes them from A to Z, right? What they're looking for is a coach to take them from A to B. You already have that. You already have that knowledge. And it's just about trusting yourself and that you can lead someone from A to B. And probably by the time they get to B, you have made it to C now, and you can also lead them from B to C. And if not, then they're still going to be appreciative of that journey that they went on with you. And they're going to go and find another mentor that can take them to the next step, right? But it's the same sort of doubt that creeps in of, I have to have all the answers. I have to know everything. And you never will.
I feel like I am got to go on a date now with a coach to be able to figure out where my step is. I'm sorry. I just like had that thought flash across my mind. I was like, Yeah. Yes, I'm also dating for coaches. So for any coach out there that would like to help your Speaking Voice LLC to get to the next level, I'm interested. I have applications to hand out if you're interested in dating somebody like me. And I'm just smiling. I know that no one can see this, but it's almost the same sort of tact. But we do have that freedom of choice. And I think that's really what this boils down to is what kind of choice we make and not let our caveman brain actually step in the way, which is so true. We get stuck in that, and cave women too. Sorry, I don't want to offend anybody. There's cavemen and cave women as well. But Navi, I'm curious because you have had all these stories of things that you have been through to get to where you are. When you're talking to someone that you're trying to help, how are you leveraging your experience to help that person get to that next level? Meaning, clients come from all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, all kinds of different things. How do you help them fit into that mold, that situation that they're going through?
So, one, it's not about fitting into a mold, but it's just like the biggest thing that I do as a coach is meet people where they are and to understand that someone's best, like this is the biggest thing that I've learned through my coaching journey is that someone's best isn't my best, right? They could be going at a different pace. It could be better than my best. It could be slower than mine, right? And it's not about judging them. It's about meeting them where they are and supporting them and holding the vision for the next place for them for as long as I need to unwaveringly, because I didn't get to where I am without support, without help. And even where I am now, I still have coaches because there are things that I want to do in places that I want to grow in, the places I want to take my business that are holding that bigger vision for me. And it's so much easier to do that when you have somebody who is supporting you, believing in you, and can see the things in you that you can't see for yourself yet.
I think that's a good point about trying to make sure you get somebody that understands who you are, but also sees where you want to go. And I think for some of my clients, I've always advocated that, yeah, I'm having you work on this and I want you to do this sort of work because it is your responsibility. It's not my work, but I see this bigger vision. I always tell them about it because of what they shared with me. I said, look at the infinite possibilities. And I really work more on the personal and professional development side, and even for public speaking for that matter. But for your realm in which you're helping entrepreneurs, you're helping those that are going through love and dating relationship issues, you're definitely are helping them to find that inner peace, if you will, to get to that next level. And I just love the fact that you've been through those. And you're right. I said mold. Shame on me because we're not all created equally. And I know that we have to find our own little unique path in that. So thanks for correcting me on that. And that was a Freudian slip, if you will. Navi, I'm curious because as we get close to the end and just knowing a lot about your story, reading it to the audience, and also hearing a lot from you, you've shared this as being an author in a variety of different books we didn't even get to yet. But I'm wondering, what keeps you going? I mean, what keeps you really wanting to help others? I mean, you could have just been self-fulfilled by being able to answer these questions, have these pillars that you talked about earlier, and be like, I got what I needed. So why do it? Why help others?
Because I really believe that this is the reason why I went through the things that I've gone through in my life, because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I have this ability to see things for people, like really see their success and hold that space. That comes innately to me. And I love doing it. And I know that what it feels like to be that person that just wanted someone there and needed someone there. And to be able to do that for another person and to see their success, like it is so rewarding. It is so rewarding to me to see the success of my clients, to see them thrive, to find the love that they never thought was possible for them, to step out in their business and find their confidence and find their voice, and to also become change makers that are creating tremendous change, and to know that I helped propel that forward. That's the most incredible feeling.
Tell me a little bit about the book that came out about Broken to Blissful that you just released. It's your first solo book. I know that you have written other books that you've contributed to. Does it help to talk about those sort of subject matters in that book to really expand upon what you just said? Is that something that would be a helpful resource for those that were picking it up? Maybe you can share a little bit about the book before we wrap up here for today.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my book, Broken to Blissful, I really go into depth of my journey, all of the places that I struggled and the things that I did specifically in those moments to pull myself out of it. So it is very much memoir, but it's a teaching memoir. So I talk about the places that I was in and how I got out of them. And I really wanted to have this book as a resource because I want to be able to touch so many more people. Not every single person has the resources to work one-on-one with me, but I wanted to create an affordable resource that if you're feeling stuck and one of the ways that you're stuck is you're also broke at the moment, I wanted to have something that you could go and get very inexpensively and use the tools in it to be able to turn your life around.
I will put a link to where you can purchase that in the episode notes if you're interested in having that resource. And even afterwards, I highly encourage that if you are struggling with that, reach out to Navi, because I feel like just hearing this today makes me feel a little bit better about maybe where I could lead my life if I'm just willing to work on those 4 pillars that you explained. So Navi, we're pretty much at the end of our time here. I was wondering if you could share for our audience how they can reach out to you. I know you have your coaching business that will help others. If you have any information as to how they can reach out to you, how they can get in touch as it relates to scheduling, maybe a consultation if they want to have more information before they walk into a coaching session. Maybe you even have some other books that maybe you want to reference to and how they can access that. Maybe you could just provide how they can just get through life and be happy with who they are, be inspiring. So with all those things, I'll let you have the last few minutes to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So you can connect with me on my website, which is naviblisscoaching.com. I'm also on all social media platforms, just at Navi Bliss. So feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions. Wherever you're at, I love to have conversations with people and connect. So don't feel like you're going to be pushed into high pressure or anything like that. I want to make sure all my clients are a good fit. So anyone that is interested, I always do a free complimentary 20-minute call with anyone before we even talk about getting into a program and doing a program. My book, Broken to Blissful, is available on Amazon. And then there's 2 books that I'm also contributing author for. And one is called Healing and Growth. I have a chapter in there about overcoming infidelity. And the other book is called Our Yellow Brick Road. And if you're a fan of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, you're going to love Our Yellow Brick Road because it's actually stories of 10 inspirational speakers and all of the challenges that we overcame. And if you're in a place where you're feeling stuck, it can be really helpful to hear multiple stories from multiple different people that have overcome, because maybe you can't exactly relate to one person, but if you know that, hey, all of these people did it and they're not any more different or any more special than I am, and they were able to do it, you know that it's possible for you as well.
Absolutely. Anything is possible. If other people are able to do it, you can do it as well. Navi, I'll put all those books in the episode notes as well, along with all that contact information. So for my listeners, if you are interested, check out the episode notes for more content as it relates to that. But Navi, I just want to say, for people that I've had on the show, which I'm in over 100 some episodes at this point, it's just been an amazing journey for myself to hear a lot of different fascinating stories of survival, grit. I've had people that were on a boat coming to America, escaping communism. I've had people that have gotten through all kinds of different types of ailments, whether it's through a traumatic accident, whether it's through medical illnesses, whether it's through something that happened in high school. But the one thing that always sticks to my heart is those that have been through domestic violence. And that is something that in this country, I still think it's underplayed in terms of the things that you do. Now, you're in Canada. That's one thing I didn't mention. So I've noticed that in the United States, there's still so much more work to do. We've had so many high profile things going on that I feel like the warning signs are there. So I really am happy to know that you're on the other side. You're in a much better place. And to top it all off, you're helping others. And that's really important. So from one coach to another, Thank you very much for being on Speaking from the Heart. Thanks for sharing your story, your testimony, and being part of this awesome experience with me. Thanks for sharing what you have shared today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. And if I could just say one last thing, if you have a loved one that's experiencing domestic violence, this is the one thing I want to share. It can be really tempting to push them or yell at them or be like, just leave. But that person is already in a place where they're being so controlled. And if you come at them from a controlling place, you're just going to push them into a place where they're further isolated and they feel like they can't come to you. So if you have a loved one that's experiencing this, just try to hold space and be as kind to them as you can so that when they feel ready, that you're the person that they can come to and they don't feel shame around coming to you.
That is so true. I know I've said that about my own attempt of ending my life, that people weren't giving me that space. It just only created more ramifications. So definitely don't pressure somebody that is going through that, because it is a decision that they have to make. And as long as you know that you're surrounding them in goodness as opposed to pressuring, that can make such a big difference. So Navi, thanks for sharing that. And again, thank you for being part of the show.
Thank you.
Again, I want to thank Navi for sharing her story today, and also sharing all kinds of different possibilities that we can have in our lives just by building upon the 4 pillars that she even talked about. And that's really where I want to start this conversation, because even if you think about love and the variety of different forms that it takes place, which even many different authors, Gary Chapman for that matter, even talk about in many of their books about how we approach that even in a relationship basis. We have to figure out that we get to the bottom of it all by understanding how we can feel helped, to feel love through validation, by finding the ways in which you experience opportunities to explore this concept, because it's something that isn't just given to us. We sometimes have to work for it too. So there's 2 different modalities essentially that we're working towards to find that passion, to find that love, especially in our lives. But I love that her pillars talk about living your passions, living your values, cultivating that self-trust, but also practicing love and kindness with yourselves, which I really want to explore one by one as we go through the wrap-up of this episode. Because if we think about even passions for that matter, we have to find ways in which we can make ourselves feel enthusiastic. I think a lot of what even Navi's story is about is figuring out how we can find the excitement in a relationship with someone. Sometimes it's not very easy. And when it's not very easy, we might not be with the right person to be able to create that value, to create that sense of companionship. We have to live the passions that we have to explore for ourselves. And that's going to be very hard. You have to be hard to get, especially when you have exacting standards for why you want to fall in love in the first place. I think we even settle for less. And I know that in many past relationships that I've been through, which have been traumatic in nature, I have let my guard down. I didn't know what I want, and now I do. I know that I need to figure out a better system, especially if I'm ever going to be a better person for a relationship. And that's something that I'm even working on to this day. It doesn't mean that I'm hard to get. It just means that I need to figure out first what I really want so that I can share with that person what I'm expecting. So living your passions should be the number one thing that you are absolutely trying to do to explore that self-love, or even the love that you want for somebody else to create that value in your life. Even if you have that, you have to live your values. Number 2, essentially, is to be at peace. Find that way in which you can live with yourself with the values that you truly want to live. Whether it's with integrity, whether it's with respect, maybe you have honor. Maybe you want to have the understanding that communication is so important to you. But don't define it at just a high level. You have to break it down sometimes so that people know what exactly you're trying to do. And I know even for myself, it's so easy to say that, but I'm also know that I'm a work in progress. If I really want to build those values, that means that I have to work on myself along with all the other things that come along with it. So living your values means that you have to understand what you represent, but be at peace with them at the same time. But even then, you have to earn that self-trust. You have to cultivate that within yourself. Number 3, Because if you don't trust yourself, if you don't believe in the trust that you have, no matter what it comes from, you will never, ever find that love, both internally and externally. And I really think that for me personally, I felt that from Navi's story. And I felt that confidence even in the interview of how trusting and caring that she wants to be with a potential partner, let alone herself for that matter. But even with those three things said, practice, 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 especially with love and kindness, is a skill that we have to continuously mold. We have to refine. We have to find the right language in which we can communicate that love for someone else. Now, even with all those things said, I know that building on those 4 pillars of confidence means that we have to build upon ourselves. We have to learn that our brains are not working against each other, because our brains, as much as they want to manifest protection and making sure that we're okay at the end of the day, means that we have to learn survival. What does it mean to grow value? What does it mean to create that authenticity in ourselves? Sometimes we have to figure out that we are dating someone that is in a different body. Having that conflict, having that chaos that takes place while we're manifesting that confidence means that we have to learn where those responding points of our body are at, which means that it's not just a physical manifestation, it's an emotional manifestation. But I know that even if you're hearing all this, you might be asking yourself, that's great. I have no idea what you've been saying the last 5 minutes, Josh, but it sounds all awesome. Can you just break it down for me in just one concrete sentence? Absolutely. Are you ready? Open yourself up to the obstacles and the opportunities that come along with it while you're enjoying success. Obstacles, opportunities, and success. We're never going to get it right the first time. Maybe not even the second time. For me, there's about a dozen times now that I've tried in my life to fall in love, but every time I've screwed it up, whether it's with someone else or I know for a fact it is me. But you have to learn that you're not doing it because of all the things that are going on in your life. It means that you have to understand that success comes from the things that you're called to do, what you're willing to fall in love with. Whether that is really with a person or where I'm heading this conversation towards, which is the things that you really enjoy doing. Because if you don't love what you're doing, you'll never find success. You will always hate and dread what you're really trying to do. There have been many jobs in my life, even the jobs that I sometimes have held and talked about on this show, that made me feel like maybe I had to go through that period of time to learn something about myself. But I should have never held myself back from that unlimited potential that I have inside of myself, because I should have found the love that I was seeking a long time ago. But you have to hold that vision of what you're really looking for. The vision that we have for ourselves, whether that is with someone else or who we want to be, means that we might have to challenge the status quo. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And even if you say that maybe I should do it, you should do it. Because part of this whole process, this whole vision that we're working towards, means that we have to leave room for improvement. You have to have an opportunity to grow. And when you have opportunities that you're trying to excel in, the goals in which you're trying to accomplish, it means that you have to have a bigger vision for the overall picture that you're trying to paint. You have to learn that success comes from trials. It doesn't just come handed to you. Because if you think everything that everybody has ever received in their life was handed to them, think again. I'm sure you can think of a number of different people that would challenge even that assumption. Even for myself, some of the family members that I've had in my life think that I was handed everything. And they had some sort of jealousy. They had false love for what I had. Because what was really false about what I had was not just the things that I've already tried to accomplish, some of the things that I've already had in my possession. What they failed to realize was that I had to work for it. It was not easy for me to find it because I had to find the vision, the courage in which I needed to attain that level of opportunity to get to that next level by challenging myself. And friends, I think if we ever are going to learn from stories like Navi's, especially if we're going to date someone, if we're going to fall in love, if we're ever going to cultivate this confidence that we have that we deserve to be loved, we have to realize that we have to strive for something bigger. I know that that is easier said than done in this world in which it is always changing, that it's always trying to get one on you because it's always looking to find ways to push back. And sure, maybe there are situations that are causing havoc, terrible confusion, maybe making you feel like you're not so magnetic of a personality. But we have to keep trying. We have to keep learning and doing, not taking any shortcuts, not finding some sort of cheat book in which we can hack into the system and manipulate the code in our favor. We have to learn that we have to grow these opportunities by earnest hard work, dedication, and commitment towards what we're ultimately trying to achieve. Hold yourself to a higher vision. Find someone like a love and relationship coach, a professional personal development coach like myself even, that will help you to realize that you have bigger gifts to give. Challenging yourself, even if you feel that there is no problem, is something that you still need to push yourself to do, no matter which way you might feel about yourself or even others for that matter. That other person, that antithesis of yourself, might be the one that's even screaming the loudest, saying that you're never going to be able to succeed. You're never going to be able to fall in love. You're never going to be able to open yourself up to new obstacles that can challenge you to become the best version of who you are. But let's face it, whether it's for love or money or recognition, fame, sex, drugs, alcohol, regardless of what it is, even if it's good or bad, just know that it does take hard work. I believe in you, though, just as much as my guest believes in you. To try to challenge yourself and how your brain works, because our brain has been wired from millions of years ago to still think that we're in this survival mode. And sure, maybe conditions in today's world make you feel that way, but is that a perception or is that really truly your reality? I know that it is so easy to just fall back, relax, and Netflix and chill, especially with all the things that are happening around you. But let's face it, you have a lot more to offer, especially to a certain someone that you might have not yet met in your life, or even had encountered in your own version of yourself. Can't you find a place where you can be loved even more, to be encouraged even more deeply than you ever thought possible, but to also create repeating situations that make you happy as a whole? I think it's possible. I think it's truly a beautiful thing if you're able to do that. Because friends, I believe you can live your passions. I believe you can live the values that you're trying to find peace with. You're able to cultivate that self-trust. But more importantly, I know you have it in you to spend a little bit more time to practice intentionality with the love and kindness that's inside of you. Because that's what I really want to see, is your authentic self, even in all the love and all the relationships that you have going forward. Thanks for listening to episode number 138 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.